Hey True Crime Besties, welcome back to an all-new episode of Seriously. Hey guys, I am jumping on here from my podcast set with you today because we have a new update in the Savanah Soto case. I put it over on my podcast yesterday because I've mentioned to you guys in the last one too, sorry, my phone's getting in my way, that it's so much easier for me when these updates happen to just jump on the mic because I don't need to worry about YouTube approving it, flagging it, doing all of that stuff. So this update already went live, but a lot of you wanted the video version and you wanted it over here on YouTube. So I'm ripping that audio and putting all of the information over here. But as a reminder, it's again, just way more effective, way more efficient for me to jump on the mic the same day of an update and give it to you through the podcast. So if you're not following the podcast yet, please do so. It is called Seriously. I will put the icon right here so you know how to find it. It's free and it's on whatever podcast app you have on your phone. You could also listen to it on the computer, Spotify, Apple, whatever you want. But I wanted to share this again with you because so many of you have been following this case closely and have asked for this coverage. So here is the latest update. And we actually have quite a bit to talk about because in addition to the arrest details that have come out, there's also been new affidavits released, more information, more charges, all the way through Thursday night, which is when I'm recording this so that I can give you the most accurate and up-to-date information. So let's start with the arrest that went down. Late on Wednesday night, it was announced that they had made an arrest of 2 different people in regards to this triple murder. Nobody really knew who these people were. There was a lot of speculation, but they did announce that they would be doing a perp walk within the hour and then a presser at 11 p.m. local time. So when they begin this perp walk, the first person that we see them walking out with to the police car is a very, very large man. And this man's name is Ramon Preciado, and he's 53 years old. Now, as he's walking out, what was so interesting to me is that unlike many cases and perp walks that we've seen, he was actually talking back to the reporters. He was getting hounded by reporters, of course, which kind of actually, they went a little Wild West in my opinion, but I get it. But they were, asking him if he has any remorse, why he's a baby killer, all of these different things, to which he kind of looked with a side eye to the camera and he said, fake news. He also said that it is one-sided, that they didn't know what was going on when they were asking him about why he did this and if he's sorry and if he hid evidence. And what he responded to all of these questions that were just being rapid fired off to him is he then, once he was in the car, looked back at reporters and said, "Aren't you sorry for lying about what you're saying? You don't even know what's going on."
Are you sorry for what happened? Did you know she was pregnant?
Oh, always fake news. So.
This is your final chance to say something about your side.
Hey guys, we're going this way.
Then people continued, obviously, talking to him as he's getting shoved in the backseat of the car, like the piece of human garbage trash that he is. And he then said, "It's one-sided. You don't know what's going on." And when asked why he did this and if he's sorry and if he hid evidence, he just kept saying, "It's one-sided. You don't know the whole story. You don't know what you're talking about."
Yeah, guys, always one-sided. You don't even know what's going on.
Back up, guys. Back up.
Let's back, guys. You sorry?
They want to know why. Why did you do it?
You sorry?
Did you do it? Why did you do it?
Did you know she was pregnant?
What did you say?
Huh? Did you care?
Why was it the whole family?
Close to Christmas?
Remorse? Anything?
Why, man? You need remorse? You sorry?
Aren't you sorry for lying about what you're saying? You don't even know what's going on.
Well, tell us.
You just make stuff up like, oh.
Tell us. What's going on?
Did you shoot them?
Did you shoot them?
An unborn baby.
Did you kill them or did you just hide the evidence?
How'd you know Savanah?
This man was a very large man, actually, and I think everybody kind of knew that he was going to be a large man based on the surveillance camera footage, but we now finally got a look at Ramon. Now, the second person who came out for the perp walk and was being arrested and taken into custody was Christopher, and it's Ramon's 19-year-old son. Christopher actually has very, very long hair, and it was a little difficult at first to tell if it was a man or a woman. That's not throwing shade. It's just the truth. I feel like nobody could really tell at first, but it is his 19-year-old son. So he had nothing to say to the camera, unlike his dad, who kept saying little snide remarks.
Did you do it? Are you involved? Are you sorry for what happened? Anything to say to your family? How does it make you feel, an unborn baby? What do you want to say to your family, to Savannah, to Matthew's family?
Sorry? You sorry?
Nothing to say, an unborn child.
It was an entire family.
You sorry?
Now, what's interesting about all of that as well, and we'll get to it, is that for trying to combat what the reporters were saying and say that it was all fake news, it's pretty interesting because in the arrest affidavit and in the presser, they pretty much say that the dad was actually very cooperative from the get-go and kind of just told them what they needed to know. So now why he was saying, you don't know what you're talking about, who knows, maybe he was just being defensive. So anyways, there were rumors that were going around during the early evening hours that it was a father and son. It hadn't been confirmed until this moment. So everybody was wondering what could possibly be the motive here, right? So they held a press conference immediately following the perp walks where Sergeant Washington spoke out. He made the official announcement of the arrest of 53-year-old Ramon and 19-year-old Christopher, and he said that Christopher was being charged with capital murder and that his dad Ramon was being charged with abuse of a corpse. But they did also say that they expect more charges to be pending, which there are more charges, and we will get to that. At first, he wanted to clarify too that sometimes when people hear abuse of a corpse, their mind often goes to pretty revolting things and truly abusing a corpse, whether that be sexually or however. And he made it clear that this charge was happening because he tried to hide the bodies and he tried to dispose of the bodies and the evidence. So the way that they say that they caught on to this and what led to these arrests is that investigators had actually collected Savannah's cell phone at the crime scene. If you tuned into the last episode, you'll remember that Matthew's cell phone was missing. I had mentioned on that episode that it was my belief that his cell phone was missing because whoever committed these murders had potentially arranged a meetup with him via text message or calling him or him calling the other guy or whoever it was, and that the murderer needed to take his phone with him from the scene in order to then not have that kind of forensic digital trail that would catch him. But they did collect Savannah's phone. So then Secret Service and the forensic search team found a possible location of the suspect's vehicle from that surveillance footage. So that location was then located. They did surveillance on the location, and then they determined whose house that vehicle belonged to. And then when they went up to the door and knocked, the dad answered the door and apparently cooperated fully. So they then started interviewing both of them, both the dad and the son, and then that led to the interrogations. Apparently they had enough based on what was said in those interrogations to then lead to an arrest warrant and, of course, then to charges. So, as I said, we're going to get to the additional charges as well, which we learned more about today. So what they believe at this moment, or at the presser at least, they believed that the son committed the murders and that the dad helped with the cleanup. Police also mentioned the misinformation going on around social media right now and how so many different people were named and targeted and implicated and all of these things, and that it kind of became a little bit of a witch hunt, so to speak. And they said that these are currently the only suspects. When talking about motive, they said that it was a narcotic-related deal gone bad. And I want to talk with you about that in a minute here, but I'm just, again, going through what we learned after the arrest. They also said there was no connection to that apartment complex where the car was dumped, and that it was strictly just a dump site for the bodies and for the vehicle. But again, they reiterated that there was some sort of drug connection and a drug deal. They also said that they are unsure about charges related to unborn baby Fabian and that is all pending and undecided, and that they were going to be partnering with the DA's office, and ultimately the DA's office will be the ones to decide what those charges will be, if any. They also believe that Savanah, Matthew, and Fabian were killed at a different location and then were taken to that apartment complex just to dispose of the vehicle and dispose of the bodies. They also said that they don't believe that the dad was there during the commission of the murder, so he will not be charged with murder because of that. Christopher himself at 19 has no previous criminal history, but his dad did have some. They didn't mention what exactly, but they said he did have a little bit of a record.
The individuals you saw this evening, the first individual's name is Ramon Preciado, 53 years old, SID number 443651. The second individual was Christopher Preciado, 19 years old, SID number 1191061. So the two individuals we just walked out today, again, is a father and son. The first individual is a father, the second individual is a son. They're going to be charged. The son's going to be charged this evening with capital murder, and the father's going to be charged with abuse of a corpse. So we do expect more charges to be pending. So I'm not going to go into the whole thing. We all know what kind of led us to this to where we are today. I will say that when we recovered, or when the bodies were discovered on Danny K, obviously the investigation began. SAPD detectives made that location and started collecting evidence. One of the key pieces of evidence that we did collect at the scene was Savanah's cell phone. And so that was handed over to our technology team, who was able to download some information on there. With the assistance of the U.S. Secret Service, we were able to get enough information, and so that information was given to our detectives today. With that information, the detectives were able to find a possible location of where the suspect vehicle that was released on that surveillance camera, the surveillance video, possible location where that suspect vehicle might be. They made that location, and sure enough, the vehicle was there. They did a little bit of surveillance on the video, or on the vehicle, and then were able to determine which house it belonged to. They went up, knocked on the door. The first gentleman, the first individual, the father answered the door. He knew why the police were there. Was cooperated fully with the investigation. We're right here to headquarters, and our detectives were able to start interviewing both the son and the father. Again, they were both at the home. They were both brought down here, and the interrogations began. Through interrogating the individuals, our detectives had enough, based on what they said, there was enough information there to get a warrant signed by a judge tonight, again, to charge Christopher with capital murder and Ramon with abuse of a corpse. Again, there will be more charges pending. This is what we have right now. I'll answer any questions.
Due to the capital murder for the son and then abuse of the corpse charge for the dad, does that mean that you guys believe the son killed them and then the dad helped hide the bodies?
Yes. And so I want to touch base on something real quick. Since the release of the video that we put out on the 28th, internet has blown up with people sending tips and people just sending misinformation. There's a lot of misinformation out there. These two individuals are the only suspects that we were looking for. They were arrested. There were many names being thrown around on the internet. Those people had nothing to do with this. We vetted them and everything. They didn't have anything to do with these murders. So the individual, again, Christopher, we believe committed the murders of Matthew and Savanah, and then Ramon helped.
Did you say why?
It appears to be a narcotic-related deal that went bad.
Do we know the connection between this father and son and Matthew and Savanah, or the connection to the apartment complex?
So there's no apparent connection to the apartment complex. It's just a place where they went to go dispose or hide the vehicle with the bodies in it, and it appears that it was a drug deal. So there was like a drug connection to the suspect and the two victims.
So talking about these new charges, police initially had charged Christopher with capital murder, but then Thursday they added abuse of a corpse and alter or destroy a human corpse. His father, Ramon, had a charge of alter or destroy a human corpse added to his charge after initially facing the abuse of a corpse charge, this for helping his son move the bodies after the murders. Now, at the time of this recording, both are still in jail, but there have been rumors of the dad bonding out. Now, according to all of the law enforcement websites, those rumors are untrue. Again, just at this moment of recording, who knows what's going to happen after I press live, but his bond is still showing being set at $600,000. Overnight after the arrests, one of their family vehicles, we're not sure whose, was tagged at some point. Somebody took a can of spray paint, can't say I blame them, and they wrote baby killer in huge letters on the side of the vehicle. Again, honestly, I can't say I blame them. Now, I want to play Matthew's family's reaction to these arrests, and then I'm going to talk with you through the affidavit, which really brings a lot more details to light and actually kind of shows that Christopher might be alluding to this all being self-defense, even though police have said the crime scene doesn't match his version of events. But we are going to talk through that in detail. But first, let's hear from Matt's family.
Did you know she was pregnant?
Oh, always fake news, so.
That is a man accused of helping to hide the bodies of Savanah Soto and Matthew Guerra. Ramon Preciado and his son Christopher arrested last night for their alleged parts in the murders.
But today, more charges have been filed against the father and son. Christopher Preciado charged with capital murder. Now 2 more additional charges of abuse of a corpse and alter, destroy, conceal a human corpse. His father, Ramon, is also charged with abuse of a corpse and the newly added charge of alter, destroy, conceal a human corpse.
We're also, for the very first time, hearing from the family, Guerra's father and stepmother. Speaking to KSAT today, Eric Hernandez reports they are hoping for the full extent of punishment for both men.
Upset, anger, all kinds of emotions just going through.
Gabriel and Raquel Guerra are breathing a sigh of relief after Christopher Preciado and his father Ramon were arrested Wednesday night in the deaths of their son Matthew Guerra, his girlfriend Savanah Soto, and their unborn child Fabian.
That was definitely a relief of mine that, you know, I can hold someone accountable. I've been talking about justice for the 3 of them since it started.
Gabriel and Raquel say neither of them know who Christopher and Ramon are. According to the arrest affidavit, Matthew and Savanah met Christopher to allegedly sell them marijuana. We asked the Guerras about that information after they had previously stated that Matthew was trying to turn his life around.
Matthew hasn't made the best decisions, but, you know, I'll make no excuses for him, but whatever he did, you know, I don't condone that at all. But that being said, no one deserves to be murdered, period, regardless of what kind of activity you're in or what you're doing.
Now this case moves to the district attorney's office, and the Guerras say they want nothing less than the death penalty for Christopher Preciado.
Now it's on the DA. He had said something about the death penalty, and I'm going to hold him accountable to his word. And that's the next process for me, is him confirming that.
We did get a statement this afternoon from the district attorney's office about the case, and they say an additional capital murder charge could be added for Christopher for the death of the unborn child, but that hasn't been decided just yet. As far as the death penalty after an indictment, the Capital Crimes Committee will then decide whether to seek the death penalty or not. Erica Hernandez, KSAT 12 News.
So going into the arrest affidavit, this is for Christopher, and I'm going to read certain sections from it because I think that they're important to hear verbatim. So let me just dive right in. So it says, we observed a deceased pregnant female inside of the front right passenger seat. Due to the knowledge of the female on a previous murder case from 2022, they recognized the female to be that of the missing female. The female appeared to have trauma to her head. Now, something worth noting here is that the vehicle apparently went to Christopher's house at 11:50 p.m., and then it did not start moving again for 4 minutes. Then it went directly to those apartments. So, again, just kind of building out the timeline. It says they then observed the back seat of the vehicle. They observed a deceased male in the back seat of the vehicle. The deceased male resembled the boyfriend to the female. The male had an apparent gunshot wound to his head. It appeared the male had been dragged into the vehicle. They did not observe any weapon near the male. Now that's really interesting because they are talking about how it appeared he had been dragged into the car, which we'll talk again about. And one of the biggest questions was, were they murdered in the car if a deal was going bad? Were they murdered somewhere else and then they were put back in the car to dispose of them? So I thought that information was interesting, but we're going to get to a lot more in a second here. So they then go on to say a search warrant was requested so entry into the vehicle could be conducted. While waiting for the search warrant, they spoke to the families of the female and the male. It was found that the boyfriend to the female sold narcotics and would also use his phone through cellular communication as well as social media to sell the narcotics. It was also advised that the boyfriend would post money and narcotics on his Instagram. It was stated that people wanted to rob the boyfriend, and it was stated that the boyfriend had been shot at before. The family provided us with the phone number of the female, and the family of the male provided us with his phone number as well as his Instagram. It goes on to then say that the search found spent shell casings in the vehicle. However, there was no weapon recovered inside of the vehicle. There was apparent blood transfer on the outside of the vehicle that was not consistent with the boyfriend causing harm to the female. Both the female and the male had gunshot wounds to the head, and the male also had apparent drag marks on his back. It was believed that the female and the male were killed at a different location, and the vehicle was then driven to the recovered location. And then it says they provided one of the victim's cell phones to Detective Knox at the Technical Investigations Unit. And on January 3rd, 2024, they received the phone download from Detective Knox. They found that the victim had recently searched the street of Charlie Chan Drive. And Charlie Chan Drive was just a couple of blocks away from where the vehicle was located for the recovery. It also says that the vehicle pinged near Charlie Chan Drive and also Cary Grant Drive, this around 11:50 p.m. on the night that they went missing. The vehicle did not start moving again until around 11:54, which was like 4 minutes later, like I said, and then the vehicle traveled to that location where the victims and their vehicle were later discovered on December 26th. They also conducted computer research, and they were able to locate a vehicle that looked identical to the suspect vehicle that was seen on camera with the victim's vehicle. So they did research on the owner of the vehicle, and that's how they found the owner of the vehicle matched the description of the male that exited the vehicle on camera. While at the residence on Charlie Chan, a person identified as Ramon reported knowing why SAPD was at his residence. He wasn't surprised. He knew why they were there when they knocked. Ramon informed the detectives to speak with his son, who identified as Christopher. Then Ramon and Christopher were transported to SAPD Homicide to speak with detectives, while additional detectives searched the residence on Charlie Chan Drive under the authority of the search warrant. Ramon admitted to driving his Chevy Silverado to that dump site where he met Christopher. Ramon identified himself on surveillance video from that dump site as well as the person observed exiting the Chevy Silverado. Ramon reported meeting Christopher at this apartment complex, who was driving another vehicle. This vehicle is the vehicle in which Matthew and Savanah were found deceased. Ramon admitted to assisting his son Christopher. Ramon knowingly treated the human corpse of Matthew, Savanah, and the unborn child of Savanah named Fabian in an offensive manner by leaving them in an abandoned vehicle. They then spoke with Christopher after Christopher was read the Miranda warnings, and Christopher reported that Matthew and Savanah drove to his residence on Charlie Chan Drive to sell Christopher marijuana. Christopher went on to provide a version of events that were inconsistent with the evidence that was collected at the scene and from the victim's recovered vehicle. Christopher claimed that the male victim pointed a weapon at him, and Christopher was able to manipulate the weapon, resulting in the female being shot. Christopher then stated that the weapon had been pointed at him again, and he again manipulated the weapon, again resulting in the male victim being shot. Which, let me just say, I guess anything could happen, but we know that Matthew and Savanah were both shot behind the ear, so how they both coincidentally have the exact same cause of death and location of bullet wound after a struggle with the gun, and he was able to manipulate it, and it accidentally fired, and it fired each time accidentally into the exact same location on both people, seems very far-fetched and like a fable to me, but I don't know. Who knows? I guess stranger things have happened. Not really. So the affidavit goes on to say that Christopher's statement is inconsistent with the gunshot wounds that were suffered by Matthew and Savanah, and also the evidence that was located at the crime scene. Christopher initially discharged a firearm at Savanah and Matthew with the intention of causing the death. The actions of Christopher resulted in the death of Matthew, Savanah, and Savannah's unborn child named Fabian. And then it goes on just showing that the affidavit is signed. So, I mean, this is all pretty interesting because I think back to that perp walk when the dad was very, combative, saying, you don't know anything, it's fake news, this and that. But then right there we're seeing in writing that he pretty much said as soon as the detectives knocked on his door, he was like, yeah, I know why you're here. You got to talk to my son. So then to say fake news later, unless he was talking about it being self-defense, which apparently is what Christopher is trying to sell, the whole thing is a little bizarre. But like I said, details are literally being released every single day, so I'm going to keep you updated. But I really want to play right now some things that came from the family and also from the police about everything going on social media right now. Because if you have been following this case, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you haven't been following this case, count yourself lucky that you don't know the Wild West crap that has been happening on the internet with it's honestly Brian Laundrie 2.0. It really is. Remember when there was the guy in the rowboat and he thought he saw Brian and Brian went live? All of those things. It literally felt like that. So I want to share what the family is saying about all of that. So since the last update that I did on this case, which I will link in the show notes, Savanah's family has spoken to the media and said that they want the public to stop playing detective and stop spreading misinformation on social media because this case has gone absolutely viral bananas. There was a picture of a guy at a vigil, we'll talk more about this, where he was overweight, and every picture people could find on the internet of guys in the San Antonio area, they were putting side by side. It's gotten a little crazy. So this statement came after the San Antonio police released that surveillance footage of the vehicle and the persons of interest. And to be honest, I totally agree with the family here. Like I said, it's gotten really out of hand. While it's great that general awareness and getting people talking can generate tips and leads, only when it's warranted. And I don't want to say when it's factual, because then if it's not a lead or a tip necessarily if it's a fact, but you know what I mean? Only if it's credible, not these wild goose chase kind of things. And unfortunately, when cases like this hit the media and they go so viral so fast, it turns everything into a frenzy to where people want to be the first with the information. They want to be the one solving it. They want to be the one generating something that, I'm going to have critical thinking here and I'm going to pull some information out of a hat that people haven't thought of or think of. And I'm going to be the genius behind it. And while that's all great and good to be doing that brainstorming, when it starts clogging up the tip line, when it starts doxing people who are innocent and had nothing to do with it, it gets very, very dangerous. And not only that, but the family says that the negative comments that they've seen on social media are painful because they're trying to mourn. They're trying to process these deaths. They say that no one in this world is perfect, and they appreciate all of the prayers, the love, and support that they have received, but they need you guys to back off. And I don't mean you guys if you're listening, but I'm talking about people who are taking this beyond to the next level. So the family also set the record straight about the GoFundMes, including fake GoFundMe accounts that have been created, which is truly revolting and disgusting. So there are only 2 official GoFundMe accounts, one for Savanah and Fabian and one for Matthew. There also have been a lot of questions about where the surveillance was taken. Now, from what I've seen from other official sources, that video was taken at the location where the car was dumped. In the video podcast that I uploaded to YouTube after last week's episode, I included an interview of Matthew's dad and stepmom, and I want to talk about how they said that they knew something was wrong when Matthew's dad broke down the door and saw that a candle was still lit, and they also saw Savannah's hospital bag was still inside their apartment, as well as the apartment looking normal, like nothing had happened inside. Now, interestingly, Savannah's mother commented that because she had the car seat in her lap, that must have meant that they were going to the hospital. I'll play both clips now, and the reason I'm bringing this up will all tie together here in a minute, guys.
As this was happening, Gabriel says he was racing to his son's apartment, kicking down the door after he didn't get an answer, fearing the worst.
The candle.
The candle was on.
That was another sign that they had a candle on.
Gabriel says the lit candle and Savannah's diaper bag being left behind told them something was wrong.
So now going back to the surveillance video and the investigation into who was driving the Kia Optima and who was driving the truck, initially a lot of people thought that the surveillance footage was possibly a drug deal in real time that was possibly happening. But it was later revealed that police believed Matthew and Savanah were both already deceased in the car during the surveillance. Additionally, when you look at the surveillance video more closely, even though it's not the best quality to begin with, I'll admit, you can see a towel is being handed off, or like things were being wiped down in the car. So I just want to clarify, it's definitely two people. There are two persons of interest, someone driving the Kia and someone driving the truck. Now, going back to the parents' statements, it seems like if both Matthew and Savanah left on their own accord, they weren't going to the hospital since the hospital bag was still there, and they probably weren't planning on being gone for that long since the candle was still on. Or maybe they were really heading to the hospital and just forgot about the candle and also forgot about the hospital bag because they were in a rush. It was a frenzy. I don't know, or maybe something entirely different. Who really knows? But in either scenario, I'm having trouble making sense of why somebody who is very, very pregnant would be holding onto a car seat in their lap in the front seat to begin with. And it makes me wonder what on earth happened in that car before they were killed. Did two people get in the back seat of the car and they needed to move that car seat? Again, it just seems odd to have the person that literally is about to give birth holding on to something else in front of them. And again, if they were going to the hospital, I'm not sure why she would be holding onto the car seat either. However, it is possible that the car seat was moved onto her after she was already deceased so that they could make room for Matthew to be in the back of the car. Or maybe even, I don't know, possibly to conceal her body. Something else that kind of came through my mind, I've been pregnant. I've had 2 children. If I was ever, and it's making me really emotional thinking about what she went through, but if I was ever in a position or a circumstance where I was fearful of my own life and my unborn's child life, I would probably go to desperate measures trying to do anything to protect them, even if that didn't make sense or didn't seem like it would work. So another thought, and I could be way, way, way off here, guys, so I'm not trying to like generate any crazy rumors or anything, it's just my thought as somebody who's given birth and has 2 children. If the gun was involved, which we now know that they were shot, maybe she took the car seat and put it over her stomach as a way to try to protect her unborn child. I don't know. It just, again, the whole car seat being on top of her seems so bizarre. I don't think she'd be holding it to go to the hospital. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Making room for Matthew makes more sense. But then, depending on if it was upside down or what way she was holding it, your belly, regardless how big you are, at least for me, speaking for myself, it could have fit in the top of a car seat like that, like if you use it as a shield. So, like, that's something that came to my mind too. I don't know. I know brainstorming is like sometimes can take a very hard left and go off the rails, but I just wanted to share that's something that came to my mind because I could imagine being desperate and trying to do anything you could to protect them. I don't know, guys. I want to know what you guys think. Now, like I said, a lot of people suspect that this might have been a drug deal gone wrong or a drug deal that was meant to be a setup as like payback or some type of robbery. There's also been a lot of speculation about where the murders actually took place. Was it in the vehicle? Was it outside of the vehicle? Were the bodies staged after the fact? Law enforcement has said that Savanah's bullet wound came from below her right ear. And some people believe from the helicopter aerial video of the scene where you can see the yellow tarp covering part of the driver's side of the car, that it shows that the glass on the driver's side car was broken, leading people to think that maybe she had her car door open, maybe the window was down, maybe she was shot below her right ear and the trajectory of the bullet and the exit wound would have shattered the driver's side glass. There's a lot of theories. Personally, for me, it's too grainy to come to that same conclusion, and for now, this has not been verified by law enforcement in any way. However, what has been verified by law enforcement is that Matthew was shot behind the right ear as well, except his gunshot wound indicated contact with the gun's muzzle when the trigger was actually pulled. So, whoever killed Matthew was literally right up in his face, right next to him. The district attorney spoke to the media about why this is a capital murder investigation also, saying it's because there are multiple victims and an unborn baby, which are 2 aggravating factors in a murder charge. In Texas, this means that the suspect or suspects could be facing the death penalty or life in prison without parole. However, the DA said it is too early in the investigation to say if his office will seek the death penalty.
In the event that happens, certainly that is something that we would potentially consider.
Gonzalez says his office has a capital crimes committee that votes on whether to seek the death penalty in certain cases. Since Gonzalez has been in office, he's prosecuted more than 100 capital murder cases.
We've only made the election to seek death twice in my office during my administration, one of which we resolved before it went to trial.
The one that went to trial was a case of Otis McCain. He murdered San Antonio Police Detective Benjamin Marconi in 2016.
We have discussions about obviously how egregious a case is, what makes this a capital murder case. Other issues, for example, is whether or not this defendant is a continuing threat to society. Because
he says they also consider the family's wishes.
We're going to do, I've said this before, we're going to do everything possible to ensure that these individuals, when they're caught, and I'm confident that they will be caught and charged with capital murder, that we hold them accountable and that we do everything to bring justice to the memory of both Savanah Soto and Matthew Guerra.
The murders of Savanah, Matthew, and baby Fabian have put a spotlight on an ongoing issue regarding violent crime in the San Antonio area, and specifically the neighborhood area that the Kia and their bodies were found in. I know there has been a lot of discussion about certain people and things taking place on TikTok, but none of that information has been verified or even officially linked in connection to this crime in any way at this point. So I'm not sure it's honestly even helpful for me to discuss. It just seems like more of the rumor mill and not credible so far. So until I have more concrete updates and facts and evidence and footage, I'm not going to do another update on this, but as soon as I do have all of that information, which I am partnering with somebody close to the investigation who gets access to a lot of these sources. So I expect to have that soon. And once I do, I will give you another update. So if you are not following the podcast officially, make sure you hit the check mark or press the follow button, whatever you have to do so that you don't miss that episode when I release it. As I mentioned in my last one too, it's always so much easier for me to just jump on the mic the day of, give the quick update. I don't have to wait for YouTube to approve it because they're trying to flag it or censor it or whatever it is. So it just makes it way faster for me to deliver the information to you guys right here on the mic. So make sure you're following if you're not yet. All right, guys, that is it for this week's case updates. I will be back with you on Monday with a brand new, very, very deep dive on a case and a very surprise angle that we're taking with it. So make sure you don't miss that episode. That is Monday morning. I also have the ad-free bonus episode if you are a Patreon or a subscriber, which comes out this Friday. So more access, all access, a lot of new exciting tiers over on Patreon. I'll put that link in the show notes. And as always, thank you for listening and tuning in with me. I love your feedback. I love hearing from you guys. So please leave whatever feedback you've got, and I will talk with you again very soon. Until then, please stay safe. Please keep your loved ones safe and hug those next to you. And just be nice. It's 2024. It's a new year. Let's all try to stay positive as long as we can, which will probably go out the window as soon as I watch the Anthony documentary tonight. But we'll see. Here's to hoping. All right, guys, thanks so much, and I will talk with you soon. Bye.